Hi there. We're in The Three Worlds by Nelson Barbour, Charles Taze Russell, page 36, and this section is entitled The World to Come. And the subhead, Shall We Know Each Other There? What is the future of the redeemed, and how are they to pass the days and years of forever? Is there no clue to the mystery? Has God indeed left us in darkness with only a vague, undefined hope? No other subject has so deeply interested mankind in all ages as this of the future life. Both language and song have been exhausted in describing its imaginary joys. We speak of the realms of the blessed, of that country so bright and so fair, and oft are its glories confessed, but what must it be to be there? The Indian loves to meditate of the happy hunting ground, where the boundless woodland and broad prairies shall teem with deer and bison. The Mohammedan of a paradise of love and sensual delight. The Buddhist of perfect rest, a heaven where he will be absorbed into deity and remain passionless, inactive, and inexpressibly happy. But the Christian world is divided. One part believe they are to bask in the immediate presence of God, where there is fullness of joy, but have no definite idea of their occupation. Hence their heaven approximates somewhat nearly to that of the Buddhist, perfect but undefined happiness. The other part of Christendom, including premillennialists, age-to-come believers, and all classes of Adventists, believe in an agricultural heaven, where the righteous shall inherit the land and dwell therein forever. And the desert blossoms the rose, and instead of the thistle shall come up the myrtle, and instead of the thorn shall come up the fir tree and box tree, to beautify the place of his sanctuary. They also expect to build houses and inhabit them, plant vineyards and eat the fruit of them, and long enjoy the works of their hands. That's a familiar text if you're a witness. Isaiah 65, verses 17 to 25. These approximate in principle more nearly to the red man's heaven, who, being of a race of hunters, believe in a heaven where all the difficulties and dangers of the chase will be forever banished. The Christian being, in the main, an agricultural race, those were the days, look for a heaven where thorns and thistles and drought and all the effects of the curse will be removed, and every man permitted to sit under his own vine and fig tree, with nothing to hurt or destroy. Thus we find the religions of the world divided into two distinct classes, the one teaching a spiritual, the other a temporal or material heaven. And there is much in the Bible which favors both. The prophets clearly foretell a material heaven and a high state of agriculture for mankind in the millennial age. There is to be a restitution of all things, according to Acts 3:19. And as in Adam all die, so in Christ shall all be made alive, but every man in his own order. And in the restitution all nations will enjoy, to some extent, their own ideas of heaven. To illustrate, there is a distinct promise for the Sodomites, every one of whom were destroyed, that they shall be restored to their former estate, and given to Judah for daughters by another covenant. That's derived from Ezekiel 16, verses 51 to 61. But in the restitution, the curse being removed, the evil of their former estate will not be. Hence they will enjoy, as daughters of Judah, the highest degree of happiness they are capable of appreciating. So, in the restitution of all things, the Indian will be restored to his former condition without the evil, and thus enjoy to some extent his expected happy hunting grounds. Presented in just this way, this may seem like a strange doctrine, but a restitution of all things is clearly promised, and is accepted by fully 1/2 of the Protestant Church. As there is no knowledge in the grave whither thou goest, and that very day his thoughts perish, and of course he's here deriving this directly from Ecclesiastes chapter 9 and Psalm 146, still proof text for the Watchtower. He says, as that is so, his thoughts perish that day. All nations will come up in the restitution with the same ideas they had in this life, and at first know nothing more than they knew at the moment they fell asleep. Hence they will commence with all the habits, good and bad, with which they left this life, and will require to be ruled with a rod of iron until they shall all know the Lord, from the least to the greatest. For God has sworn, as I live, saith the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue confess to God. Hence from the Jewish nation, who are promised a restitution to Palestine, down to the lowest Hottentot, they will, in the restitution, each and all realize, to some extent, their highest ideas of happiness in heaven. Now, of course, Jehovah's Witnesses don't talk like this today, but they still have inherited the idea, the premillennial conditions, and this idea that somehow men have to have those perfect conditions restored before God can correctly judge them fairly, that is, justly. So this idea of a second chance, very clearly embedded in this discussion. So we want to put on your screen, though, the relevance of this passage that he uses in this last paragraph from Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes and life after death. Really? Is that where we should go? Or to Psalm 146 to get clarity on life after death and the future? So problems with that. So put that link on your screen. And also a link to one of the Paradise Lost series we did based on Isaiah chapter 65, the same passage he uses here. What is the relevance of that paradise passage in the context of Isaiah 65? So that's on your screen too. And next time, what about immortal bodies and this concept of a spiritual body? What would be the abilities of a spiritual body?